Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with Glenn Ambrose. Today we're talking about, obviously, a very comical subject, addiction.
Yes.
No, it's not comical. No. Oh, I'm just laughing at myself, not the subject matter.
Anybody that doesn't listen to this when it's released and is going through all of the categories of the names of the episodes,
let's pick addiction.
Like, oh, addiction. That's what I really need to listen to. Addiction.
And then they hit that opening.
They hit the opening, and within 30 seconds, we're
They're like,
howling.
what is wrong with
They're
this
like,
dude?
this is not going to help me.
Yes, this is a new twist on addiction. This dude laughs about it.
What are they on right now?
Yeah, really. What are they addicted to? Maybe they need to listen to their own show. Wait, we haven't recorded it yet.
We'll be very somber by the end of this.
Yeah, I'll make sure I break down and cry a little later. Just offset the balance. It's all about balance, you know. So anyway.
So addiction.
Back into the depths of addiction. Yeah, well, since I wrote an article in the June issue of Natural Awakenings magazine, we figured we'd do a little addiction special. So
Now available at places everywhere,
yeah, go pick up yours,
including this studio if you're leaving them.
And the other thing too is actually they you can read this article online if you go to Natural Awakenings,
naturalawakenings.com.
Yes, go there, and it's in the June edition called "See the World Anew: Conquering Addiction" by Glenn Ambrose. He sounds like an interesting dude. Anywho, so let's start with a definition. We'll go from there. Addiction can be defined as a persistent compulsive dependence on a behavior or substance. It's a progressive syndrome, increasing in severity over time unless it is treated. It can take many forms. Some are obvious and some are not. So that's all the reading I'm going to do. But that's, it's important to know that it's an addiction to a substance or behavior that is becoming a problem in your life. If you're choosing if you're choosing a behavior or a substance over your own peace and happiness, there's an issue. There's an issue in your life. And the problem isn't the substance or the behavior. It's the fact that you need to choose it. The fact that your life is going in a direction that you're not happy with and you need to escape from it by getting a high or a fix out of an addictive action. That's the problem. So the problem isn't necessarily the actual substance. It's that you need to turn to it. That's the problem. It's the substance or the behavior is actually a solution
to a bigger problem.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's that you're incapable of dealing with life on life's terms without turning to that. Without turning to the addiction. So although the addiction is a crappy solution, it's still a solution nonetheless. Life is the problem.
Obviously when somebody says addiction, the word addiction conjures up images of alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, possibly food and sex.
Yeah.
Those are the main like.
Yeah, those are the main ones, and it's that most people are aware of, and even the sex one is just getting more well known nowadays because of the media.
But even there are other like people can be addicted to anything. Online shopping,
texting.
surgery, texting, going to the gym, binge watching shows.
Relationships is very common.
Yeah,
people get addicted to relationships, and a lot of times it's at the beginning of a relationship because of that honeymoon period. There's that high that they get that somebody might. It doesn't really matter if they've been alone for a while or if they've been in a relationship, but when they get into a new relationship, there's that rush of endorphins, that little high that comes out. And I mean, I've seen it in different situations where people are trying to separate from one another, and they go a certain period of time. And I've even done this in a past relationship where I'd go a certain period of time, and then all of a sudden to reach out to that person just because I'm a nice guy. Like, I just happen to run across this article that would help this person dealing with this particular situation that I know they're going through. And I mean, what kind of human being would I be if I didn't pass that on? I mean, it's just me being a kind person. It has nothing to do with her. And then I send an email.
It doesn't have anything to do with her. It's you feeding your addiction.
Right. And then all of a sudden, so I'd send that email. And it's like, oh, I'd get that fix, and she'd respond, thank you. Ooh, okay, good. Then I'd go on because consciously I was telling myself that I wasn't trying to stay connected with her. Then all of a sudden, a month or two, whatever that cycle was, however long it was at the time would go. And then all of a sudden another reason would come up, and I've had it happen to me. Where, every 4 months, like clockwork, all of a sudden, a girl would reach out to me. And it's like, whoop, there it comes. So it's that, but that's a form of addiction because it's you're taking an unhealthy behavior. It's just people aren't aware of it, And what happens with that particular addiction is oftentimes the person that's trying to get on with their life, like that actually has the addictive aspect, subconsciously they're blocking any new relationships from coming into their life because they're still attached unconsciously to this other person. Yeah. So it's, they're not even aware. They're probably out there they could even be out there dating.
We talked about that. We talked about that last episode. They're staring ahead at the door that won't open.
Yes. Yeah, they're staying...
and they can't see anything else that might open around them.
Right.
Because another door is going to open somewhere. But they're fixated on that one because they have an addiction to it.
Right. And it's...
And I like themselves.
I like that example because it's not so obvious. You look at an alcoholic that's destroying his life or her life, and you're like, oh my God, well, look, isn't that horrible? But we all have...
And it is.
Of course it is. But we all have addictive aspects to our life. We're very habitual beings. We get little subconscious feeds off a lot of things that we do in our lives, and we're completely unaware of it. And it's the same basis. It's the same basis as these other things. It's just, working... I've done a lot of work with addicts and alcoholics. And early on, I really thought there was a really unique difference about them. And over the years, as I've worked with more, non-addicts and alcoholics, I've found that there's really not that much difference. It's just not. The basis for the addiction or a behavior is the same. The things that people are struggling with, somebody that works a little too much and doesn't have a happy home life, that person is dealing with the same types of issues that an alcoholic is dealing with. It's just that it looks different on how it affects their lives. You know, it's more obvious when an alcoholic, you know, goes off on a tangent and you know, kills somebody in a car accident. You know, that's more obvious and faster acting, but it doesn't mean that the motivations underneath aren't very similar to somebody who's gambling at night, or, you know, on a regular basis and not telling their spouse and losing some money, or you know, not even, it doesn't have to be that profound. It's that you're doing something unconscious. And if you understand that there's an addictive loop to it, like there's a need, it's being fulfilled, and you're not fully in control of yourself, with that knowledge, if it's just a minor addiction, you can break it with that. You know, the problem with alcohol and drugs is that there's a physical manifestation of that allergy too, of the addiction. You know, you have that mind obsession that is so powerful and so strong, and then all of a sudden there's a physical aspect to and like an alcohol addiction. There's that physical aspect that your body is literally craving more alcohol. So I mean, that's why it's so difficult to get out of that, you know. An alcoholic is going to have a lot more difficulty breaking out of that pattern, that addiction, than somebody is that's emailing a girl that they dated for 2 months, you know, once every few months. I mean, you know, it's like night and day. It's just that the addictive loop is similar, you know, so understanding them is very helpful.
All right, so I think that was like the first section of this is what addiction is, right?
Yeah.
And this is how broad it is. And that everything, the underlying theme of addiction is this, that, you know, that you're looking for a solution for something else, and it's a loop and all of that stuff. What is the difference now between why does one person maybe get addicted to buying things on Amazon and someone else is unfortunately dying of heroin?
I mean, it could be a lot of reasons that we'll never know, you know.
Is it just circumstance? Is it deeper? Is it the worse the issue, the harder the addiction? Like, is there a correlation?
There's too many moving parts, really, you know, to narrow it down like that. You know, there is a genetic and or a physical predisposition for certain addictions. You know, I mean, that they've proven that if alcoholism runs in a family, there's more of a chance that, you know, somebody else in that family is going to be addicted to alcohol, especially because it has a physical component to it like that. You know, a matter of enzymes breaking down the alcohol and things. So I mean, there are predispositions to certain things. Environment plays a big toll. You know, what you've been through can you know. But it's, you know, we never know.
There's literally no way of knowing.
There's no way. No, there's no way of knowing that, like, oh, this person, you know, if they don't watch out, they're going to become addicted to heroin. And
right.
If this person doesn't watch out, that, you know, they might buy things from Amazon. Like, there's no way of knowing where they're going to turn and what's going to click.
You never, like, anybody could be anything.
All right. And I mean, in the like, addiction understanding really expanded tremendously through Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and that's why a lot of, I mean, I'm reading a book now, Power versus Force, that refers to AA in all kinds of ways to explain different societal things and outlooks and stuff, because it's the book, the big book that was written, is a spiritual text. It has very deep understandings of addiction and other issues within it. So one of the things that they say is from Yale to jail, it doesn't discriminate.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, you got people in there that are highly successful, and you've got people in there who've never been successful at anything.
Yeah.
It just, an addiction does not discriminate. Deep thought.
Yeah. I'm thinking if it's too early to move on to my third part question, which is... No, because I think it's the biggest one. Yeah, absolutely the biggest one. How do you get out? How do you break the addiction?
I have a 30-second answer that will cure all. No.
All right.
That would be nice.
You have about 15 minutes. Solve the world's problems.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, the aspects of getting out of the addiction are really looking at the past to understand where you came from and why you are where you are. Dealing with your present circumstances and creating a new vision for the future, a new way of thinking and dealing with life for the future. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And that's kind of that's what the 12 steps do. That's why they're so successful. The 12 steps have brought millions upon millions of people around the world to sobriety. I've heard upwards of 80, or sometimes I've heard over 100 different 12-step groups for different addictions. That tells me it works. Like, what? Somebody's not going to take a model of something that doesn't work and create another program off of it. That it's just, we don't do that. So this doesn't work at all. Let's create 100 more programs just like it so those can fail as well. It doesn't make any sense. So, the 12 steps work, and basically what they do is it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. I mean, I believe everybody's different, but it works with many people. And the reason is because that's what the 12 steps do. They walk you through that process. They walk you through looking at your past and understanding why you're doing what you're doing, and and it teaches you how you can take responsibility for your future and to start living a different life. And it also it shows you a different perspective to look at life through, as you're going through that. So that's why it works. And so that, from my experience personally and working with others, that is, that's the core of any addiction. Now, with an alcohol or a drug addiction, you may need to go through a 12-step program. Most people do. Maybe something like, shooting that email to that person every couple months to stay connected. All you need is awareness. And you go, oh, are you kidding me? I didn't even draw that line.
There's a 12-step program for that.
Oh, I'm sure there is, But it's just that, that one is a little bit easier to control. Sometimes the awareness of it is enough to just say, oh, I'm not going to do that behavior anymore. I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing.
Do you think that the majority of people that are suffering from addiction are aware that they are addicted?
That's a tough call. Consciously or unconsciously?
Consciously.
I think most people who are suffering from, really suffering from an addiction, kind of moderately to severely, I think there's a part of them that's pretty much aware that there's a problem. Because if they're able to be honest with themselves, though, that's part of the addiction process is denial. You can't sit there. It's very difficult to stay an addict if you're sitting there going, well, I'm an addict. I have a problem. There's another way, and I'm choosing not to do it. That's very uncomfortable.
Right.
Part of being an addict is believing that there's no other way. You can't destroy your life with a clear conscience if you know that there's another way. So you have to deny the fact that there's another way. And one of the best ways of doing that is denying that there's even a problem in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely denying that there's a problem for, like, the old adage, I can stop anytime I want. You just don't want to stop.
Right. And I mean...
and then they throw the cigarette away and they immediately take another one out of the pack. And, that's how that is portrayed in television and movies and everything. The denial. And, that's the joke. Everybody sees the denial and they hold firmly that they could quit if they wanted to. They don't want to.
And it feels like it's a solution, because it is a solution. So, like, if you take somebody who's destroying their life with, and I'll keep using drugs and alcohol because it's the most obvious, but it can be in a lesser way in a lot of different things. Well, I shouldn't say a lesser way. You can kill yourself with a lot of different things. It just takes more years,
Definitely.
So like you can have somebody that is, drinking that has a problem with alcohol and their life is falling apart. And then somebody comes in and says, listen, your life's falling apart because you're drinking. You should really stop. And they go, no, it's not my drinking. Life is just not fair to me and it's falling apart. And my wife's leaving me, and they won't see that it's from the alcohol because they feel that the alcohol is the only thing holding them together, because it's the only time that they can make the head crazy stop. It's the only time that they can find a little bit of peace. So when they're not drinking, they're a mess. So they're sitting there and their mind's racing and they feel out of control and they feel like they need a drink and nothing's going right and life sucks and all this stuff. And then they have a few drinks and they feel a little bit better for a little while. And everybody goes, you need to stop drinking. And they're like, are you kidding me? It's the only time I feel good. Like, why would I possibly stop drinking? Life is my problem. And do you want me to stop the only thing that gives me the ability to deal with it? Heck no. So that's their perspective. And that's why a lot of people don't understand it that aren't addicts and alcoholics, is they're looking in from the other side going, you're destroying your life. Why would you keep doing that? Well, it's because you've never been there and you're not looking at it from their perspective. That's why.
There was I read a book recently called We Learn Nothing, and it was a collection of essays that this satirical cartoonist wrote, and one of them he talked about the people that go crazy for things, like the woman that drove across the country that was in love with the astronaut and wore a diaper. And
I love that.
And his question wasn't like when things like that happen where we all go like, how did that happen? His question was like, how does that not happen every day?
Yeah.
And like that,
we're functioning unconsciously so often.
Right.
That,
and so my thought was like, when you see like an addict in something that you're like, that is visible, that is, this person is a drug addict or a very clear alcoholic, something that we deem way worse than our addictions. We think, how does that happen? But it's like, that happens every day to
oh yeah.
I would say like everybody is addicted to something. Probably, like most people.
Yeah, most people probably. They have some sort of addictive.
Something
behaviors.
About them is addictive. They're using something.
And just to touch on that a little bit, like Michael Bernard Beckwith says, to use your ability to choose, use your freedom more often. And he's like, just do little things. Just sleep on the opposite side of the bed as you usually do. Take a different way to work. Do just something, not just because it's going to make you more conscious of your behaviors. We're so habitual. We do so many things unconsciously, just out of habit and pattern, that there are things in our lives that are detrimental to us that we're not even aware of.
And this is what I'm saying. I think that if we can become aware of our own addictive traits, our own, whatever we do that is somewhat addictive and somewhat of a solution to a problem that we're looking for, then I think that it's easier to realize that and then not judge and to empathize when you see what we deem as worse addictions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a step towards our own happiness too.
Yeah.
Because it's a really foundational stone for our happiness. It's because we can look at it and go, okay, I'm going to take control. Like, these things, they might not be hindering our lives that much to where they're making us miserable. That's why we don't really notice them.
Yeah.
But living unconsciously is keeping us away from something that can make us more fulfilled. So if we use that consciousness to see it and go, okay, I'm doing that, and it's actually a little bit detrimental, the benefits we're going to get from overcoming that is not only for that particular situation, it's going to open us up and go, oh my God, it's going to empower us to have more control over what we can change in our lives, which is going to give us an uplifting feeling, which is going to make us want to do more work on ourselves, which is going to give us a more empowered feeling, which is going to, and then it's just going to feed off of itself.
It's time for the quote of the day.
Yay!
All right, so this one's obviously about addiction. A lot of people think that addiction is a choice. A lot of people think it's a matter of will. That has not been my experience. I don't find it to have anything to do with strength. Matthew Perry.
Yes.
Obviously,
thank you, Ben. Good night.
Obviously, Matthew Perry is...
Chandler Bing.
Yep, and now Oscar Madison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, anyway, yeah, that's a good point, because the willpower thing is something that people from the outside often believe, and people from the inside often believe. Even an addict will have a tendency to feel like they're weak, and that their willpower is, should be able to stop them, but can't. And the problem with that mindset is willpower doesn't work on something you give yourself permission to do. So the problem with, we'll say, an alcoholic, when he's going to go for a drink, he's sitting there and he's going, okay, life is horrible, this sucks, I want to go have a drink. But I can't because I'm an alcoholic, so I really shouldn't have a drink. And then the mind goes, yeah, but your life is really screwed up anyway, so you might as well. I mean, there's no way you're going to make it through this situation, and you blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is the mind obsession talks you into agreeing to drink. So then your willpower is useless, because your willpower can't work against something you give yourself permission to do. So that's why the willpower doesn't work. I mean, alcoholics and addicts, when they get sober, they've shown that they're very strong, willful people. I mean, and you kind of have to be if you think about it. I mean, to destroy your life with that amount of just fortitude and pushing forward, you got to be pretty strong-willed. You're destroying everything around you, your family, I mean, everything. And to keep pushing forward, you got to be pretty strong-willed. So it's willpower doesn't work because it's not a matter of willpower. In the addict's head, they come to the conclusion that turning to their addiction, may it be food, shopping, anything, is what's necessary to bring them peace, to deal with the situation, to make life bearable, whatever it is. That's the solution. And once their mind agrees and shows them that that's truth and that's what they need to do, willpower's out the window, because they're no longer trying to prevent themselves from doing it. They've agreed that this is a good idea, and they're going to go do it.
This was a great discussion, I think, personally.
I think.
I don't know if
discussions go.
Like, for us at least, I think that this was I like that it was, we laughed all the way through it, which is a hard thing to do when you're talking about this subject. And it was good. It was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not as heavy of an episode as you would assume. But
Yeah.
if people need help, then it becomes a very serious situation. And if they do, where can they contact you?
They can contact me at life-enhancement-services.com, or my Facebook page, Life Enhancement Services, or Glenn Ambrose with 2 N's on Facebook. And yeah, I do work with all kinds of issues, addictions being... It's one of my specialties. It's definitely something that I've had a lot of experience with, so it's right at the top of the specialty list. Although I like to find common threads in all behavior, in all life situations. But yeah, so contact me there, and I truly believe that it's an outside perspective is really important in most things, in all things, really. We need to learn how to deal with things differently. And addiction is it's not excluded from that. We need to reach outside of ourselves to learn how to be different. And when we do that, success follows. So that's it for today.
All right, and make sure to check out the article in this month's edition of Natural Awakenings magazine, rinaturalawakenings.com.
And that's actually the June issue.
Yep.
So when this is released, it won't be.
It'll be June.
It will?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe it'll be still June. Okay. Well, anyway, it's a June edition, so you guys can figure it out from there. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
This podcast is presented by New Shore Productions. Executive producers Glenn Ambrose, Benjamin Barber, and David DeAngelis.